Hey guys, Daniel here. This is another video, and in this video, I am actually joined by an amazing actor called Alan Austen. For those of you that don't know, Alan is an actor who's been in some of the biggest films of all time. Just to name a few, he's been in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's been in Flash Gordon, Doctor Who, and he's probably most known for his work in Star Wars, as he played a Stormtrooper, and he actually played the Stormtrooper that put Han Solo in Carbonite. But Alan has agreed to come on for an interview, so I cannot wait to talk to him for the next hour or so, and most likely annoy him. But Alan, thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, Daniel, and it's nice to be here. Thanks for asking me.
I know, it's no problem. I can't wait to talk to you. Let's just get right into questions. My first question is, how did you get into acting?
Well, I mean, it was something that I wanted to do since I was a child, and sort of coming from a sort of working class London family. It was kind of, there was no one in the family that had done anything like that, and it was kind of frowned upon as well, because it was looked upon as though that's not a career. Well, I mean, nobody in my family had careers, but no, it was ever since I was a child. I just wanted to. It looked like I used to watch TV or go to to the cinema, and it looked like a fun thing to be doing, and so it was just a sort of a dream, really. I can't even say it was an ambition, and I did sort of I was like, at primary school, I was like the star actor and all the stuff that we did then. And then I went to a rather tough secondary school in South London, where there was no drama department or anything like that. And it would have been laughed at if you'd have even mentioned that you had dreams of becoming an actor. And so it was all kind of put on the back burner until I left school and started my first couple of jobs, where it was like, do you know what? This is no way to live your life. And so I just started to do some amateur dramatics and some drama coaching, that sort of thing, where the sort of, I don't know, I mean, I don't know what my plan was, really. It was a kind of a hope that I could maybe just get into the business. And so it was a bit of research, and I found out about the Film Artists Association, which was union, that if you got into that, you could do background work in films. Yeah. No television, but films definitely. And that was a closed shop, but I made the inquiries as how I could join the union, and then it was a long process of just waiting until they opened the books up, because it was a closed shop. You couldn't just join the union. You had to you had to know somebody, but anyway, I mean, eventually, after knocking on their door for a long time, they opened up their books very briefly, small window of opportunity, because there were a lot of films that were coming over to England from Hollywood. A lot of big movies were coming over, and they needed young people to be a part of those movies. And so they let me in. They allowed me to join the union. And then obviously central castings was the next step. It's been no time at all. I was offered a couple of days' work on The Empire Strikes Back. I knew nothing about this film. They gave me so little information. It was just be at Elstree at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and take it from there. And so that's what I did. I got there and no idea that it was the sequel to Star Wars. I hadn't even seen Star Wars at that point. Obviously, I knew what Star Wars was, but I hadn't actually seen the film. So yeah, that was my intro into the business.
So your first ever acting job was on Star Wars?
Yeah, the very first one. And I was booked for 2 days with no knowledge of what it was all about, what was going to happen. And so obviously on the first day, it was explained to me this is, you know, the sequel to Star Wars, and 2 days turned into a week of sitting in the dressing room, the male dressing room, not even being dressed as a character. It was just like, you know, oh, we'll get to you, we'll get to you. And that's when I got to more or less know the other guys that were background artists on the movie, or at least, you know, some of them. And you know, the first week was just literally sitting in this male dressing room, reading newspapers and drinking tea and having conversations with the other guys. The following week, they actually dressed us as Hoth rebels, and you know, so the 2 days by this time was turning into 2 weeks, which turned into a month, which just carried on. And I mean, I actually, with breaks, I actually worked from March 79 till September 79 on the film. So I had 6 months out of it, but with breaks, obviously, you know. But yeah, so it was a great introduction into filming and the film business. I learned, well, I'd say everything. I mean, that would be daft to say, but you know, I learned one hell of a lot working on that film. It set me up. It set me up for life, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and that's not bad. Not many people can say that their first ever job, you know, was on what many people consider to be the greatest movie of all time, not just the greatest Star Wars movie. And you know, not only did you play Stormtrooper, but you actually played a few other characters, such as a Bespin guard.
Yeah. Well, the first character was the Hoth Rebel, and that's where I built up a bit of rapport with Harrison Ford in the, you know, the tunnels on Hoth. They then dressed us as snow troopers. That was just for a couple of days, you know, to get the shot done where we're actually breaking into the tunnels. Then it was as a Bespin guard for a photo shoot. Well, I get a bit confused with whether the Bespin guard was first or the X-Wing pilot was first, but it was around about the same time. So, you know, we shot some scenes as X-Wing pilots. I actually did a photo shoot as a Bespin with Billy D. Williams and the Garfield brothers. Basically, the photo shoot was to send the look of the outfits, the Bespin uniforms, back to Hollywood for the producers there to give approval. Or to sort of, you know, suggest any changes to the uniforms, the outfits themselves, including Billy D. Williams' costume as Lando. And well, sure enough, they approved the costumes, and then we did the Bespin scenes later on towards the end. I think it was sort of into July of 79, and so, you know, I was. You know, I went from being a Bespin to a Stormtrooper, from a Stormtrooper back to a Bespin, and just carrying on like that, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it kept me busy.
And for those who don't know, the scene which I'm on about is this scene. It's with Han Solo. He gets put into Carbonite, and Alan Austen is, of course, it could easily be one of the most iconic moments in the film. But what was it like recording that? Was that a set, the Cloud City set? Or this?
Yeah, well, that was in the Carbon. I mean, there was a Cloud City set, yeah, definitely, which was from memory was 2 or 3 sets, small sets. But that actual photograph was the Carbon Freezer set, which was raised off the ground by about, I'd say from memory again, by at least 30, 40 feet off the ground, and you know, they just did it that way. It was on the same set as the Hoth tunnels, again from memory. But they you know, removed the Hoth tunnels set and then, you know, built the carbon chamber scene there. But they actually raised it, you know, sort of so many feet off the ground. And that was a standalone set.
And before you did this film, did you have any knowledge of what Star Wars was? Because this was the second part. So did you have any knowledge of A New Hope, or just what Star Wars was in general?
Yeah, I mean, I had, only the fact that, I was really interested in cinema and films. And, uh, prior to the film A New Hope being released, they had the Star Wars theme was climbing up the charts. And so I'd be getting ready for work in the morning with the radio on. And this funny little tune called Star Wars used to come on. Yeah, and the DJ would be saying, it's the theme to the new film, new science fiction film Star Wars, and it was steadily climbing up. That created a lot of interest. What's this film going to be? What's it going to be about? And then the film was released, and to be quite honest, I wasn't particularly into science fiction at the time. I would have been about 18 years old, I think, when A New Hope was released, and I never got round to going to see it. I didn't. I mean, I used to go to the cinema a lot, but I had sort of interest in different types of films, and sci-fi wasn't really at the top of the list at that period. But this to show the trailer on TV and stuff like that, and it looked good. And you go to the cinema and they'd show the trailer for this new film, A New Hope, Star Wars, and it did look exciting. And of course, it was all this new, innovative, graphics, and yeah. I mean, obviously the rest is history. It did really well, but no, I'd never seen. Well, I started work on the film, I'd never seen it.
Wow.
Well, on Xbox back, and never seen A New Hope.
Did you realize how big of a deal it would be while you were working on it?
No,
No, not at all.
No. We knew that A New Hope was a big deal, and of course, this being the sequel. And the thing is, with sequels, they're notorious for not being as good as the original. And it's been the graveyard for a lot of films where they do a sequel and then the sequel doesn't stand up, and they don't bother to do any more with the franchise. It's like, well, we've done two, and the second one didn't do great, so we won't bother again. And so that could have happened. That really could have happened. But luckily it didn't. Luckily it worked really, really well. But no, working on it, I had no idea that it would be as big, and certainly to last all these years. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
Most of the guys that I'm still in touch with, we worked on the film, we all say the same thing. There's no way we could have known. It was just, especially now for all these years, these decades later, for the interest to still keep being there and growing. And the conventions, etc., we just we had not one clue that this is the way that it's going to go.
And that's my next question: is it kind of strange for you, like, because all these years later, fans come up to you and they say, "I love that film." And did you ever expect that, like, decades later, there would be people of all generations? Like, I wasn't even born when Empire came out, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So do you ever expect that there'd be like so much fans who would still love your work in like decades later?
No, not at all. And a strange little aside, really, is that when I eventually joined Equity, or the British Actors Equity Association, in 1982, and I got myself an agent of Equity to get lines in films and TV, etc., and to do a certain amount, to work in the West End theatre. And my agent said to me, "You can't talk about Star Wars and some of the other films that I did, because I was a background artist, unscripted. Although I'm featured in Raiders, and I'm featured in Empire Strikes Back. At that time, there was so much snobbery, and the snobbery still exists to this day. But no, you're an actor now. You're an actor. You've got your Equity card, and getting new parts and stuff like that in television and theatre. You can't talk about the films that you did. You've got to forget about those because they're irrelevant." And that was the way that it was. And so you kind of, you know, you forget about it and move on. And to be honest, even when I finished working on Empire, it was where's my next job? Because you know you have to earn money,
Yeah.
and you have to move on to do more work, and you can't just sit back and say, well, I've done this major film, and I can live on that for the rest of my life, because obviously you can't.
Yeah.
And just you've done the gig, and then you look around for more work, and you move on to the next one, and it kind of veers into the past.
And do you have any like fond memories or funny stories from working on Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, I mean, I've got loads of fond memories.
Yeah.
Not too many particularly funny stories. It was hard work. Obviously, we had
Yeah.
fun while making it, but just great stories of working. I mean, well, just one that might make your audience laugh a little bit. I mean, I do have some others, but I'm actually writing a book about my experience on
Oh.
it for the book. But one that I've let slip in the past is that the icebreaker with Harrison Ford was where we're in the snow tunnels of Hoth, and it was a pretty warm set, and we're dressed up for Arctic
Oh, yeah.
conditions. And we were going into the spring of '79, and Harrison and I are just sort of in this scene just on our own. We don't really interact with each other in the scene, but we're kind of between takes, we're waiting for the camera set up, and we were just making small talk, really, just nothing conversation, just small talk. And I just said to Harrison, and it was hot this particular day, and on set it was baking, and I just said to Harrison, is it warm enough for you, Harrison? He said, kid, I'm sweating my balls off. So that kind of broke the ice with us,
Yeah, I'd imagine.
which made it easier later on. Well, that's why basically John Mogridge and I were selected to do to be the Stormtroopers in the carbon chamber scene, to put hand into the Carbonite, because the powers that be on set, the assistant directors, etc., could see that there was a bit of a rapport going on between myself, John, and Harrison, and so that's why Harrison was happy to be manhandled by us, really, because he'd already got to know us on set.
Oh, yes.
Not that we were bosom buddies or anything like that, but he was kind of used to having us around, and so that just made it easier for us to do that scene rather than two other Stormtroopers. It was just.
And my friend actually wanted me to ask you this question, but do you remember what the costume felt like, the Stormtrooper costume?
Really uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really extremely uncomfortable. Yeah.
Mm. And
Yeah.
you've worn the Bespin costume. You've worn loads of costumes for loads of characters. So out of all your Star Wars costumes, did you have a favorite one, or just one that was the most comfortablest?
Oh, well, the Bespin was definitely the most comfortable. In fact, it was such a cool looking uniform that I'd have been happy to go out to a club wearing it. We're talking about 1979, where punk rock was still at its height, and I used to go out to clubs in those days, and people would wear some pretty strange outfits, and I would have been quite happy to go out dressed as a Bespin.
Yeah, gone out partying and dressed as a Bespin guard. Yeah, that could have only went well.
Yeah, but it was such a comfortable uniform, really not, and a cool uniform as well. So.
And were the costumes fitted for you, or did they just give you this and say, right, see if that fits?
Well, the criteria, when Central Castings first called me about Empire, was that what height are you, and what's your chest measurements? That was very, very important. So it's what height are you, what chest measurements, what waist measurements are you? So they'd already made costumes that were to fit people all around about the same height and size.
Yeah.
So I'd already sort of done that in mind. And I think the Stormtrooper costumes, I think that some of them were the originals from New Hope. And certainly when I got dressed in mine, it was already a little bit beaten up. And by the time I'd finished using it, it was held together with gaffer tape. It was literally falling apart. So I know that my actual costume was used in A New Hope.
Ah, that's very cool. And what was it like to get to work with Carrie Fisher?
Oh, oh, she was such fun. She was a sweetheart. Really, really great fun. But she could be hard work at times as far as the crew were concerned. I mean, we just loved her. And she was always good fun, always polite, always sweet.
Yeah. And do you have any thoughts on the Star Wars, the newest films that came out, the sequels? Do you have any thought on them? Have you seen them?
I like them actually. I'm a big fan of Rogue One. I really like Rogue One.
Oh, yeah.
But Rogue One could be construed as a prequel, really, couldn't it? I suppose because it's the
Yeah,
the film
exactly.
that leads into A New Hope. But yeah, with the prequels, I took my son to see Phantom Menace when it was first released. I mean, my son was about 8 or 9 at the time, and he absolutely loved it. I can remember him saying to me, halfway through the film, in the cinema, he said to me, "Dad, this is the best film I've ever seen in my life." And we enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it. The ones that followed, I've watched them, but I don't know. I enjoy them for what they are. I'm not. I like telling the story. It's the build-up, really. The build-up
Yeah.
to the original trilogy, and that's kind of what they're worth to me. Is that they tell the story of the build-up. The sequels, like I say, I really like Rogue One as a standalone movie. Actually, I really like that film. The sequels, I've not seen all of them. The Force Awakens, I wasn't that keen on. The Last Jedi, I haven't seen. But yeah, I mean, I'll watch them when they come on TV.
And you just touched on this, like how the sequels now they're making other films which are kind of prequels, and now it's all messy. Speaking of, they're actually doing a comic book now, which is a prequel to the prequels. It's set 500 years before the prequels. So I think they're fleshing out Star Wars a lot more now. So maybe we'll find out more about your Stormtrooper. Maybe he'll make an appearance in some of the newer films. Old man Stormtrooper. You can just have
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it? That would be nice if they dragged me out to do that. That would be fantastic.
fly it out to LA. Yeah, get your place Stormtrooper. Brilliant. You see, we get you casted. Yeah.
that would be a dream come true, but it's a bit of a long shot. But no, it would. But yeah, I think with the Mandalorian, I haven't seen any of those either. But I think the Mandalorian sort of is set way back, isn't it?
It's set
Before.
5 years after Return of the Jedi. So I think just after everything has happened. So it's actually set after Empire Strikes Back. So yeah, it's very good though.
Okay. Right.
So in
Yeah.
Rogue One, we know that your Stormtrooper is somewhere in the galaxy.
Yeah, it could be. It maybe he's a new recruit. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe he's
Could
gone
could be.
drinking into like Moss Isley or something.
Yeah, it could be, or maybe a kid at school. Who knows?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And another film you appeared in, which is also an amazing film, was Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones. So what was
Yeah.
it like to get to be in Indiana Jones?
Well, I finished work on Empire in September of '79, and then in early summer of 1980, Central Castings again. They just said, "Oh, can you go for a casting for this new film, Raiders of the Lost Ark?" And again, you don't get any information. It's like, well, just what do you want me to do? Well, just turn and do whatever they ask you to do. So So I went to Covent Garden in the early summer of '80 for this casting, and I've got along there. And the first, as I've got there, I've given my name in, what I'm there for, and an assistant director called Ray Button, who is now something quite high up with with Warner Brothers, I believe. But he was probably 10 years older than me at the time. He'd been an assistant director on Empire Strikes Back. So, I've come in and he's come over and, hi, Alan, nice to see you again. How's it going? Oh, hi, Ray. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And, so I said, well, what's this all about? And he said, well, it's a World War II, not World War II, but it's like, leading up. It's an action adventure. And he said, Harrison's got the lead part. Harrison's, got the lead part in it. And it's the same crew from Empire. So he said, I'm not going to ask you to do anything. You've pitched up. He said, we'll just take a few Polaroids. He said, but, do you fancy doing the film? And I said, well, yeah, of course I do. So he said, well, great. We're back at Elstree again. And so, we'll let castings know dates and times. He said, but yeah, be good to work with you again. Come and play. And that was it, literally.
Yeah.
So
here is you. You appear at the end of the film. You play a Nazi, I think. A Nazi show. A Nazi, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you always seem to play the bad guys, a stormtrooper and a Nazi. Yeah, but you appear at the end, and when they open the Ark, you look at it, which obviously you shouldn't do, and then your character dies, because I think they all die, and so your character dies there. So did your character die in Star Wars as well, or did that stormtrooper live another day?
Well, let's assume that he died. Or maybe, as far as Hollywood's concerned, let's assume that he lived to a ripe old age like I am, and they get me back to be the old stormtrooper,
Oh yeah, exactly. The next 3 films about your stormtrooper. Just living life. Yeah, exactly. But getting to work on Indiana Jones, you got to work with Harrison Ford again. So did he remember you, or did you get to talk to him?
Yeah. In fact, he did me a big favor on that film. Again, I've arrived there, first thing in the morning, and they dressed me as the German soldier, and I promptly went off to find somewhere to sleep, because I've been working on night shoots for a few nights before on something about a cop show set in London, and I've been doing these night shoots as a policeman up in North London, and so I had my call time for Elstree the next morning, and I wasn't far. Where I've been filming wasn't far from Elstree Studios, so I drove down there and got there, with sort of just about on time, and I was really tired because I hadn't slept the night before, and I just wanted to find somewhere that I could just lay down and get some sleep, because they call you for 6 a.m. They don't get to you till midday or early afternoon. It's the usual way on films. And so I thought, right, I can get a couple of hours sleep. But Ray Button came over. I just literally drifted off, and Ray Button again came over to me, woke me up, and said, Alan, I wanted to come and meet Steven Spielberg. And I'm like, yeah, okay, right, Ray. I said, I just drifted off to sleep there. I said, I was just off. What's the joke? He said, not joking. He said, you've got to come and meet Steven Spielberg. I said, well, what's that? What's this all about? I mean, Steven Spielberg wasn't the Steven Spielberg that he is today. I mean, obviously, 4 decades ago. But he'd done some big movies up at that point, but he wasn't the icon, or the greatest director in. Well, a lot of people call him the greatest director of all time, but he didn't have that mantle then, back in 1980. But obviously, I knew of him, and I knew some of his work. So we're walking over to meet him. So I just said, "Well, Ray, what's this all about?" He said, myself, Harrison, and Stephen, we're chatting about.
Oh, I think you've accidentally turned off your camera.
Well, I just had a. Yep, there we go. I've got a low battery, so I'll just plug the phone in. Yeah. So Stephen was saying that I need someone to set the shots up with. I need someone that I can, just to be in front of the camera, and I can set the shots up. So Harrison said, "Oh, I saw Alan earlier today," and he said, "What's his name again?" And Ray Button said, "Oh, do you mean Alan Austen?" And Harrison was like, "Yeah, the kid who was in Empire. He was pretty good." So he said, so Steven Spielberg said, "Well, who's this Alan? Who's this Alan guy?" So Ray said, "Well, I'll go over and find him." So we've arrived there, and Harrison had disappeared off somewhere, probably to get a coffee and get his head down somewhere, I don't know. But so I was introduced to Steven Spielberg. We shook hands, and then Steven took me to the storyboard, which he had set up. I mean, he was the first director that's known for doing that, having this, shot by shot, take by take cartoon storyboard set up. And so he talked me through the storyboard and what we were going to do. And then I spent the next few days just in front of the camera with Stephen on the other side of it, while I was being, measured up for distance, and Stephen would be talking me through what was happening, and just ask my reactions, really. So it was, well, show me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do. So I'd be doing this and doing that. No, don't do it like that. Can you do it like this? Yeah, okay, right, okay, yeah, that's fine, that's perfect. Okay, do it exactly like that. So this was really for the opening of the Ark scene, where we're all reacting to what was going on. But this was basically to set the distances, camera angles, and stuff like that. So, I mean, for me, it was a great honor. It was really exciting to do, and I learned a lot doing it. Learned a lot about myself, and Stephen was pretty good at small talk to a certain extent. But in between, we got to talk a little bit about each other. My life in London, his life in LA. Not too much, not too many secrets given away, but it was interesting.
And how long after Empire was it that you got Raiders?
Literally 7 months.
Was it your second role, Raiders?
No, I'd worked on Flash Gordon. I'd worked on Superman 2. I'd done. I'd worked on the Elephant Man, and they're the only 3 that I can think of that I did between Empire and Raiders. Yeah, Flash Gordon was the very next, straight after Empire.
Wow.
Working on Flash Gordon, had about a month on that, I think. Then after that, it was I think it was a bit of a break. Then I worked on Superman 2 in the freezing cold at Pinewood. And then around about that time, I think just coming up to the Christmas of '79, into the new year, was working on The Elephant Man. And after that, I don't know. I can't remember now. It's so long ago. I often say that I should have started keeping a diary, and just keeping a note of all that was going on, but I never did. And so it was, the early summer of 1980 that I started working on Raiders.
Yeah, and do you remember where, your scene, of course, before you all get evaporated by the Ark, do you remember where you recorded in that big desert area? Was that a set?
That was a set at Elstree.
Wow.
Yeah, that was completely freshly built at Elstree, on the soundstage at Elstree. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And another thing talking about Steven Spielberg, I just popped into my head. He's good friends with George Lucas. And I probably don't have to tell you, George Lucas, creator of Star Wars. Did you get to work with George Lucas at all on Empire?
No, well, George Lucas used to come down to the set often, not every day, but most days, and he'd say hello. But basically, he was just this. We knew who he was, but he just let Irving Kershner get on with it, and he'd just come down, have a bit of input with Irving and whoever. But basically, Mark, and basically just let Irving get on with it. But he'd come down and he always had his camera with him, and he'd walk around the set, photographs, But that was about the only interaction with him.
Yeah. And you also got to work on Flash Gordon. You just touched on it there. So what was it like to get to work on? Because that was your second role. So I guess,
Yeah.
did you feel nervous working on anything like Star Wars or any just films like that? Because you felt, oh, these films are going to be big. So did you ever feel nervous when a scene's about to come on that you're in or anything like that?
No, by that time, I decided that the introduction to working in film for The Empire Strikes Back was such a huge introduction that my nerves completely went. I was very nervous when I first started work on Empire, but by the time I was working on Flash Gordon, I had no nerves whatsoever.
And sorry, who did you play in Flash Gordon? I think it was one of the
A Mongo Man. It was the
yeah.
most boring costume you could ever imagine. And I was very, very disappointed because I was an amateur boxer and an avid gym attendee for a few years before working on that film, and I was in good shape. And I really wanted to be a Hawkman, but they dressed me as Mongo Man, and so it was complete and utter disappointment.
Was that a long? Was that a long?
Sorry?
Was that a long shoot? How long did it? Because I know Empire took you 6 months. So
Yeah.
how long did Flash Gordon take you?
Well, I was just being filmed my scenes were all in the palace, and so it was just it was probably a few weeks, and so they would shot the other scenes elsewhere, but so this was at the palace with with the scenes there with Flash Gordon sort of fighting for his life in the palace, really.
Yeah.
So that was it.
You also got to work on Doctor Who, I think. So yeah, what was it like to work on Doctor Who?
Yeah, that was the early 80s. I mean, I had my equity card by that time, so I could work in television and go after parts. And so it was a very, very early TV role for me. That would have been probably about 1983 without Googling it. And so I was cast in that as Eleanor Bron's guard. Eleanor Bron was a very, very famous actress at the time.
In Revelation of the Daleks, you appear. Is it Revelation of the Daleks?
Yeah, of the Daleks, and I was exterminated by a Dalek.
Wow, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some very fond memories of working on Doctor Who. For so many reasons. I mean, I remember watching the very first episode of Doctor Who back in 1963 on the old black and white television. I would have been about 5, I suppose. And so I was hooked on Doctor Who from episode 1. I think everybody was at that time. And it was, the original Doctor Who. And then grew up watching Doctor Who for, the next 10, 20 years afterwards with all the different doctors. So to be actually on the set of a Doctor Who production was pretty amazing, and to be exterminated by a Dalek was fantastic because that was a boyhood dream coming true.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Oh, it absolutely was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not many people can say that they've been exterminated by a Dalek. You
yeah.
don't have good luck in terms of being killed, because you were killed in Indiana Jones. You got evaporated by the Ark. Then you got killed in Doctor Who. You might be dead in Star Wars. We're not sure. You could be still out there somewhere. Yeah, but you certainly haven't had luck in terms of dying on camera. Um, and who was the Doctor in Revelation of the Daleks? Oh, it's
that
different
was
now. Tom
that.
Baker? No,
No, that was
Colin.
uh, Colin Baker.
Yeah,
Colin,
that's what I was thinking. Colin
yeah.
Baker. Yeah, so it must have been so much fun. So looking back at all your work, do you have a favorite role of all of them?
Um, I do actually. Yeah. I mean, Empire is one of my favourites because it was, a massive introduction to the film business.
Yeah,
And I worked on the film for so long. There's so many memories, and I made some very good friends on it that are still friends today. Um, but I did a little known film called Return of the Soldier in about 1981, I think. It was very early 80s again. It was after Raiders. It's a British film, and it was set in the First World War. And I played a First World War soldier in that, and I'm quite featured in the film. It's a film that's largely forgotten about, although it had a brilliant cast. And that has always been a favourite.
yeah,
I mean, I really enjoy watching the film, although I haven't got a copy of it, and the film is, I don't know, if it's probably still available on DVD or something like that, but it's very much forgotten about. But that was my favourite. And then the stuff I worked on television, where I was scripted characters and stuff like that. They've always shone out. I mean, Letters from a Bomber Pilot is one of my favourites. That was a drama documentary about an aircrew, true story of an aircrew in World War II. And, I had a fairly leading role in that. And that's a favourite. Hugh Laurie actually played the bomber pilot himself. And that was his first dramatic acting role.
wow.
That very first dramatic acting role. And I remember at the read through, before television in those days, probably still true today, was very much done like you would do it in the theatre. So you'd day one, the cast would all meet at an audition room somewhere in London, and you'd sit around a table and you'd just read through the script. You'd just be, so you got the real timing for it. So you'd just be going through the scripts all together as an ensemble, as a cast. And, as it got to you, you'd deliver your lines, and then it would move on to the next scene or whatever. And I remember when we'd finished that, Hugh Laurie coming over to me and another guy. And I won't say exactly what he said because there's a few expletives in there. But he was just saying how nervous he was. He was just saying how nervous he was and how because he had the lead role with most of the dialogue, and he was like reading the letters. That was a lot of the dialogue in the drama, and he was extremely difficult to think that he's the big star that he is today.
Wow.
But we've all got to start somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
But on to my next question. Would I be correct in saying that you actually turned down Return of the Jedi?
I did. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
How did that come
yeah.
about?
Well, I was really working hard to get my equity card. It was so important to have an equity card back in those days. If you wanted to break out of being a supporting artist, I don't like the word extra. I don't believe in the word extra. You're a background artist or you're a supporting artist, because if you're an extra, that means surplus to requirements. So if you're surplus to requirements, why put you in the film in the first place? Why put, because why pay you to be in a film if you're just an extra surplus to requirements. So it's an untrue word, which began many years ago, back in the old days, and it's a stupid word. It doesn't apply. You're a crowd artist, supporting an artist, but in order to break out of that, to go on to do parts, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go on and be a scripted character and doing parts. You had to have a British equity. You had to have an equity card. Simple as that. You couldn't do it unless you had one of those. So that's how important it was. And so I was doing stuff, projects that would lead to my equity card.
Yeah.
And Return of the Jedi would have interfered with that. And plus, I was told it's, you did all that work on Empire, but Return of the Jedi, you'll be lucky if you have a week's work. You'll be, fortnight, 2 weeks work at the most. And so I said no. I said no to it.
Yeah, well, and did you witness Empire Strikes Back blow up? Was that a large film? Because I couldn't say, because I didn't grow up when it came out. But was that a huge film in England?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Yeah, when it was released, I was working on Raiders when it was released at the cinema, and I kept meaning to go and see it, and I was still in touch with a couple of guys that worked on Empire, and we said, we'll all get together and we'll go and see the film as a group, and we'll have make a night out of it. We'll go and we'll all get together, go and see the film, then go for a few beers afterwards, and maybe for a meal, and make a proper evening of it, and we never got round to it, and so I didn't see Empire Strikes Back at the cinema.
Wow, when was it that you got to see Empire?
Well, now this is a strange story. By the time my son was about, I mentioned my son again, he'd hate this. My son's a very private, quiet person. He's an academic, and he's very highly educated, and he doesn't like the showbiz scene. But when he was about 6 or 7, it was like one Sunday afternoon or something like that. I was away filming on something else. I think I was working up north. I was really busy at the time. So this would have been, my son was born in 91. So this would have been the late 1980s, 91. So this would have been the late 1990s, and probably about 97 or 98. And they were showing Empire Strikes Back on TV in the afternoon. And so he's watching the film with his mum, and his mum said to him, "So your dad's in this film, really?" I mean, my son knew that I was an actor. He was quite used to that. We lived in give too much detail. We lived in Chislehurst in Kent. It's actually Kent, but it's the edge of South London. It's the Bromley area, and there were a lot of actors and writers and directors that were neighbours of ours, and Tom used to recognise people off the TV, and he'd seen me on the TV a few times, and it kind of dawned on him that I was in that business. And so they're watching Empire, and his mum says to him, "Well, your dad's a stormtrooper in this film, really." So I've come home from shooting. I'd literally, driven home, put my key in the door, and as I stepped in the door, my son just grabbed hold of me and dragged me into the lounge, pushed me down on the sofa, and just babbled out, burst out, this is a Star Wars film, and Mummy says that you're a stormtrooper in this film." And I'm like, "Oh yeah," and it hadn't been on very long. So, "All right." So, he wouldn't let me off the sofa. So, he made me sit there and watch the rest of the film with him.
Wow.
And all the memories came flooding back, so I was like, sort of, giving him a running commentary on the film. I was saying where, "Oh yeah, and it's my friend so-and-so, and this, and so we got to the "I love you, I know" scene with the carbon, and then I step in from the left, and John Mogridge steps in from the right, and my son was just totally blown away and became a Star Wars fanatic after that.
And Empire came out in 1981, is it? And your story was 1991. So you didn't see that film for 10 years. Is that it?
Oh, more than 10 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, not many
Well,
people can say.
and yeah, I didn't see it for, well over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And another film I want to talk to you about, I think it's your newest film. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Is it Salient Minus 10?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was in, was it 2017 or 2018 now? Well, I first saw it at the end of, well, at the premiere in November of 2017. So that's a few years ago now.
At least
But
you
yeah.
didn't say you haven't seen it yet. You know, you'll wait another 7, 8 years and then
Oh,
you'll give it up.
no, I've seen that too many times now. Actually, I still enjoy it every time. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I saw the the pre-screening, then I saw it at the premiere, and I've seen it a few times since then. And it's now on YouTube.
Yeah,
So
that's on
it's there
YouTube.
for.
So I'll link that in the description.
Yeah.
But yeah, so was it a lot of fun to get to work on that film? Because that was your return to acting. Because I believe before that, your last role was on a film called Absolute Beginners. Was it?
No. Absolute Beginners was the last. That was the last film I did as a supporting artist.
Yeah.
And that was 1985.
And that's a David Bowie film, is it?
Yeah, it's David Bowie, and that's the only reason why I did the film, because I did that on a supporting artist, film artist association contract.
Yeah.
And my agent at the time, because I was working well in television. I mean, I'd done Letters from a Bomber Pilot. I'd done a few other things. I'd done Doctor Who, and so I got a phone call from a friend of mine that was going to be working on it, and he said, reeled off a few names who were going to be in the film. So I got in touch with a couple of people and said, look, I want to do this film. Yeah, all my buddies are working on it. It's David. I want to meet David Bowie if I get the opportunity to. I was a huge fan of David Bowie, and
growing up, were you a huge fan of David Bowie?
Yeah, certainly was. Yeah, from a teenager, and my agent at the time really didn't want me to do the film, and I said, look, I told her all the reasons why I was going to do the film, whether she liked it or not. And so she, we agreed that was going to be my last one as a supporting artist, because I hadn't done any films for a good couple of years. And so I went off, did the film, worked on it for a month. I actually said to Julian Temple, explain my reasons. I said, but please don't. Can you avoid featuring me? It's a strange thing to ask. And he understood my reasons, and he said, yeah, I'll just keep you very much in the background, so you're not featured. And I got to meet David Bowie, had a great conversation with David Bowie. And so, yeah, but after that, I stayed true to my word and said, I won't do another film until I've got, until I'm a scripted character in the film. I mean, I guess, with the other films that I had done, I was scripted characters, but I didn't have a name. It's like, it's a Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
The Stormtrooper steps forward and he grabs hold of Han Solo. So that's a scripted character. But, you haven't got a name.
Yeah.
With Raiders of the Lost Ark, the German soldiers step forward and they stare into the Ark. So you're scripted characters. But again, and you haven't got a name. So I said the next film I do, I want to be, a named character. I want to be on the cast list. Well, that didn't happen until Salient Minus 10, because working in television, although I was in the cast list of so many TV productions that I did, and I did lots of television commercials and was the lead actor in so many television commercials. And we had a mainstay of work in those days, which was called corporate videos.
Wow.
So you get hired by big companies to be in their training films or their promotional videos and stuff like that. And that was a really good way of making a living back in those days. And so from 1985 till about 2005, yeah, good 20 years, I worked in television and I worked in TV commercials, videos. And in fact, the first time I watched, when I sat down with my son and watched Star Wars, that's where I'd been. I'd been working away up in the north of the country for a week on a corporate video for Volvo cars, I believe, from memory. I think it was the Volvo cars shoot. So it was the star of the show on that, So that was my living for a good 20 years.
Yeah.
And, but, the comeback was Salient Minus 10. And that's because I met Emma Dark, who is the filmmaker. She wrote and directed and produced Salient. And we met at a convention. And she asked me, would I ever come back to acting? And I initially said, no, I'm done with that now. I was doing other things by this time. And, this was the convention. I was introduced to the conventions, and but I had a proper job, if you like, at that time. And so she said, well, look, would you ever do any, would you consider it if I had something, really good for you to do? Would you consider doing it? I said, well, okay. And this was after a couple of days of on and off conversations and, a bit of socializing. So I said, well, yeah, okay. I would. Look, if you've got anything that's interesting or I might be suitable for, give me a shout. So she went off and was filming Salient Minus 10 with another actor. And it all kind of went wrong. I won't go into the details. I do know the details of what went wrong, but I don't think it's fair on the other person who apparently is a very, very good actor. I've not met him, but apparently he's a very, very good actor, but it just didn't work out. And so he phoned me up and said, look, it told me what had happened and said, would you be interested? However, I would need you to audition for it because I've had a bad experience. And I said, well, look, I tell you what, I will. I'll come along and audition for it. The reason behind my thinking was that although I'd walked away from the business and acting, I'd still done a play in the theatre for a friend of mine who asked me to play this particular character in a play. And so I'd done that as a favour and enjoyed doing it. And I thought, you know what, maybe I was daft to walk away from acting. Maybe I should have stuck with it a bit longer. Who knows? So I agreed to go up and audition. And I got the train up to London to do the audition for Emma. And the thought in my mind was that if I don't get this, this is saying to me, you're finished with acting now, you're done. You've had your time, your career's over, forget about it. And if I do get it, then I could say yes or no. So, I went along there, did the audition. Emma phoned me up a couple of days later and said, oh, you've got the part. I really wanted to do the film. So I said yes, and just thought, well, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, so, I did the film and here we are now. So, so that was the lead role. Since then, I've done another couple of short films, but one in particular called The Other Soul To Evie, and I'm playing the lead character's Evie. I'm playing her dad. I'm playing her father. In the story, and it's a really nice little film. It's a really nice story. I've got a nice, well, I'm not the lead. It's a nice meaty role, and so that's out there doing the film festivals at the moment. Well, as what they can do with COVID, that's been held up. It was a year ago that we shot that. So that would have moved on a lot further by now if it hadn't been for the pandemic. And I've got something in the pipeline with the same director, hopefully later this year, but we'll see.
And regarding Salient 10, Salient Minus 10, sorry. If anyone would like to check that out, that will be linked in the description, so you can just click on it. I have seen it. It's an amazing film, Alan. You're amazing in it.
Thank you.
No problem. But another thing, you touched on this a little bit, but regarding scripted characters. When you were working on Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and were you given scripts, or was it very secretive? Like they didn't want to
very
tell you?
secretive, very secretive. Yeah, it was a need to know basis, i.e. that when you're working on films like that, the only people that get scripts are the people with dialogue.
Yeah.
And if you've just got so like the lead characters, that they'll all have the whole shooting script. But if you're playing a minor character and you come in and you've just got 2 lines or a few lines in it, you'll just get that part. You'll just get your scene. You won't get the full script from start to finish.
Yeah.
You'll just get the couple of pages that you're on. That's it.
And at the time, Star Wars was considered to be like one of the greatest advancements in terms of CGI and graphics and all that. But now, if you look at newer films, they look like unreal. Like, and is it like, because at the time, Empire was considered to be the greatest that films would ever be in terms of visuals. So is it strange for you to look at films now and see just how great they look and how CGI has evolved?
Yeah, but I think because we've gradually been introduced to it, you see it gradually happening. You don't, I'm sure that if someone went to sleep in 1980 and then they woke up in 2000, they'd be amazed to watch a film, with the advances that have been made in technology over those decades. They'd be absolutely blown away, and I think we just gradually get introduced to it and we just accept it as we go along. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible now. It's just incredible. I mean, all this green screen acting and, it's weird in many ways. And then you see everything that's been added in afterwards and how it's manipulated. I mean, hence you can make films today that in the past you'd never been able to make. I mean, if you look at, let's take Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as an example. The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings actually was first made as an animation around about 40 years ago while I was working on Raiders. I think that was released at the cinema, and it was a cartoon animation. Very, very good one, incredible one, and they made part 1 and released part 1 with the intention of doing 3 parts to tell the whole story, and they never made the other 2 parts. So it was just part 1 released. But you couldn't have made the Lord of the Rings with live actors in those days. You couldn't recreate it. That the technology wasn't advanced enough, so it was made as a cartoon. Extremely good animation. And so, with all this technology, the leaps and bounds that were really started with Star Wars has led on to the fact that you can actually make the Lord of the Rings with real actors, and then put everything else in,
Exactly, yeah.
It's been impossible. I mean, if you look at films like Ben-Hur, those kind of films, they had to have, they call it a cast of thousands. They had to fill the Colosseum with thousands and thousands of background artists because you couldn't recreate it any other way. Whereas now, nowadays, you could make that film completely with CGI, and you would need to employ all those people. Which it means that the golden days of being a background artist in movies, it means that they're more or less finished. Back in those days, someone could actually make a living from being a background artist, whereas today that's impossible. No one can.
Yeah.
No one can. And you know, that's why they had the unions. You know, the Film Artists Association, which no longer exists. But you could not work as an artist unless you were a member of that union.
I know. And another thing I wanted to ask you is, if anyone was looking to get into acting, you know, anywhere, what advice would you give them?
Straight away, don't do it. That's the first advice I
That
would
seems
give.
to be a very common one.
Don't do it. Don't do it. You know, that's the first thing I would say. But if you're determined to do it, and won't be put off by myself or anybody else that says don't do it, if you're determined to do it, my advice would be then learn to be the best actor that you can possibly be. You know, you might not be Laurence Olivier or, you know, Anthony Hopkins or Dame Helen Mirren, but just be the best that you can possibly be. There's no cutting corners in this.
Yeah.
There is no cutting corners. Very few people start out as a background artist and go on to become, you know, a leading actor or actress. I mean, they do. Quite a few have, and I've actually known some myself, you know, that have started out in the background and ended up being, you know, a very well-known working actor or actress. But it's few and far between. You have to really learn your trade, and you have to be the best that you can possibly be. And there are so many techniques to learn to get yourself through. And ultimately, it's the luck of the draw. Being in the right place at the right time is 100% true. And people's careers have been made and broken on the fact that they weren't in the right place at the right time. You know, it's 90% luck and it's 10% talent, but you have to have 100% talent. So, you know, that's my advice, really. You know, if you're determined to do this and be dissuaded, then you have to learn to be really good at what you do, and adaptable and versatile. Or if you're forever being cast as a woman, it's you know, you really have to think long and hard before you decide to enter the business, if you can get in the first place.
And my last and final question is, what is it like to look at films and see yourself in them? Is that odd for you? Does it feel like, whoa? Or how does that feel?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. I can't. There must be actors out there that love watching themselves on screen, but there's a lot more that don't.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of the greats of the old days hated it. A lot of the old time actors, I mean, they wouldn't even go and see any of their films. I mean, I've heard stories about very, very famous actors being at the premiere of their films, and they're well established, and they've slipped off because they can't stand watching themselves on screen.
Wow.
You know, it's one of those things. It's I feel the same. It's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, I can watch Empire because I've got that I've got that helmet on through the whole thing, so I can't. The thing is, you end up sitting there, you know, watching everything you do and facial expressions and stuff like that, and it's just really, oh, why did I do that? Oh God, I look terrible there, you know, and it can really put you off, you know. So the best thing to do is just go on there, you know. The way I see it, as long as the director's happy. If the director's happy, then I'm happy, you know.
Yeah, that's it.
that's it. And then, you know, if I watch the thing later on and think, oh God, I look terrible, what have I done there? Oh my God, you know, sound of my voice, etc., etc. Then I have to think, well, the director was happy, so if the director was happy, then I should be as well.
Yeah.
But you can't help being overcritical of yourself. You really can't.
Yeah, and I actually think we couldn't end it on a better note. Alan, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to promote, or is there anywhere people can check you out? Do you have a Twitter, a Facebook?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but I hardly ever use Twitter. I just can't really take to it. I'm not one of these people that just want to, you know, every thought that goes through your head, you suddenly bash it out on Twitter. I don't do that. Instagram, I don't do much either. Facebook, I'm quite active on there.
So people can find you on Facebook, just type in your name, Alan Austen.
Yeah.
And for Instagram, is it the same?
It's Austen Allen on Instagram.
Austen Allen. Yeah, but perfect. Make sure to check out Salient Minus 10. Link for that in the description. But Alan, what a pleasure it's been interviewing you. Thank you so much for coming on.
It's been really nice talking to you, Daniel. Really has. Yeah,
thank you so much. It was my absolute pleasure. What an honor to talk to a Stormtrooper, you know. Not how I figured I'd be spending my my Saturday, but you know, it's a very good way to spend it. But thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. As always, please make sure to donate to the National Deaf Children's Society. Link for that in the description. And make sure to go follow Alan's work. And Alan, thank you so much for coming on. And thank you all for watching. But yeah, that's just about it. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.